There is a familiar heaviness that settles in, even during ordinary days. It is not dramatic sadness and not attached to a single memory or loss, but a subtle sense that time moves a little slower inside your chest. This feeling comes from years of noticing more than you needed to, from feeling older than the rooms you stood in long before you had language for it. None of this is accidental, and none of it suggests something is wrong with you. It follows a quiet logic shaped by experience rather than years. For now, there is no need to explain it away. You are simply invited to stay with the stillness, knowing that beneath it exists a quieter layer that has been present longer than you remember. The silence that doesn't belong. This silence does not come from shyness, social anxiety, or a lack of things to say. It comes from noticing too much too early and learning that not everything you perceive has a place to land. While others filled rooms with noise, you learned to listen to what sat underneath it, the tension, the pauses, the things people avoided naming. As a child, staying quiet was not fear, but efficiency. You could already sense how conversations would unfold, where misunderstandings would appear, and where emotional labor would quietly fall on you. Silence became a way to stay intact rather than involved. And as an adult, it follows you into relationships and workspaces, where others describe you as calm or grounded without realizing how much internal movement exists beneath that stillness. The silence is not empty. It is occupied, a life on a different timeline. This experience is not simply about being mature for your age or naturally introverted. It is about timing. While other children were absorbed in play, you were paying attention to adults, their exhaustion, their quiet disappointment, the patterns they repeated without noticing. The phrase "old soul" is often used as a compliment, but psychologically, it points to awareness arriving before the environment could meet it. You were left to navigate complex perceptions without context or companionship. As life continues, this mismatch becomes clearer. You feel ahead of your peers in some ways, and strangely behind in others. Uninterested in milestones that excite them, and preoccupied with concerns they have not yet encountered. Eventually, it becomes apparent that your life was never unfolding too early or too late. It was unfolding elsewhere. The exhaustion of early arrival. There is a specific exhaustion that comes from understanding things before they are emotionally relevant to anyone else. You recognize patterns, outcomes, and consequences long before they become visible, and you carry that awareness quietly, without validation or relief. This often began in environments where emotional attunement was required rather than taught, where being early was not a talent, but a necessity. In adulthood, this turns into fatigue that rest does not resolve. You grow tired of waiting for others to arrive at realizations you have already processed, and tired of pretending surprise when outcomes confirm what you already knew. The exhaustion is not from doing too much. It is from arriving too early, too often, and having nowhere to place what you see. The inner elder. You may have been described as serious, even when you were young. Not rigid or cold, just unusually composed, as if some part of you skipped ahead. This seriousness often formed in response to instability, when the external world felt unreliable and restraint became safety. Foresight offered grounding, and emotional containment became a form of self-preservation. You did not choose maturity, it arrived uninvited. As an adult, this inner elder solidifies, and you become the reliable one, the steady presence others lean on without asking how much weight you are already carrying. The role fits, but it narrows the way you are allowed to exist. Existential realism. At some point, sadness stops feeling emotional and starts feeling structural. It does not arrive through a breakup, a failure, or a crisis, but settles quietly like a background hum. You are not overwhelmed. You are simply unconvinced. This realism often formed early, when optimism felt like a promise no one could guarantee. You may have watched adults repeat the same cycles and call it progress, while something in you quietly registered the pattern. Hope did not disappear. It lost its urgency. As an adult, this clarity follows you into daily life. You see through narratives quickly, not cynically, but clearly, and celebrations can feel premature, as if you already sense the cost attached to them. What remains is not despair, but lucidity. The curse of being right. You notice outcomes before they unfold, not because you want to, but because patterns present themselves early. There is no thrill in being correct, only a quiet heaviness when events confirm what you already sensed forming beneath the surface. This ability was shaped long before it became conscious, in environments where accuracy meant preparation and missing signals carried consequences. In adulthood, this creates distance. When you speak too soon, you are dismissed as pessimistic, and when you stay quiet, the moment passes anyway. Over time, you realize the curse was never accuracy itself, but carrying foresight alone, without a place where it could be received. Living ahead of the present. Your mind rarely stays in the present moment for long. It moves a few steps ahead, not anxiously, but habitually, tracking where things are going rather than where they are. The present feels thin, almost provisional. This orientation developed when anticipation felt safer than presence, when what mattered was not the current moment, but what followed it and what adjustments would be required. As an adult, this creates emotional displacement. Even in calm moments, part of you is preparing for impact, resolution, or fallout, while others rest in the present and you quietly manage what has not yet happened. Social masking and depletion. You know how to appear functional, engaged, and emotionally appropriate, and the mask fits well enough that few people question it. This ability formed when blending in felt necessary, when mirroring tone and regulating expression preserved harmony. Authenticity was postponed in favor of smoothness. In adult life, the cost becomes clearer. Each interaction requires subtle calibration, and you leave conversations not conflicted, but quietly depleted. The exhaustion does not come from people themselves. It comes from the effort of maintaining coherence between what is shown and what is felt. Solitude and recognition. Over time, solitude stops feeling accidental. You anticipate misunderstanding before it happens and adjust your availability accordingly. Isolation begins to feel predictable, shaped by repeated experiences where connection required overexertion. Distance feels safer than repair. Yet when connection does happen, it feels immediate and familiar, as if a shared language has been resumed rather than discovered. Another observer, another early arriver appears unexpectedly, and you do not need many of these encounters, only enough to confirm that your way of being is not singular. Finally, standing where you are. At this point, nothing needs to be fixed or named. The patterns you recognize have been shaping how you move, relate, and wait for a long time. Being an old soul was never about wisdom or age. It was about timing, awareness, and the quiet weight of arriving early to places others reach later, if at all. You learn to carry that weight without ceremony. There is no final lesson hidden beneath this reflection, only the acknowledgement that this way of being exists and that it has a history. And for a moment, standing where you are now, that may be enough.